All right, welcome to the Sharp Mind Show, episode 51. I'm Nate, the Fit Future MD, your host. Be sure to shop at Intersil.com, pick you up a cool, inspirational t shirt today. All right, so first place we're going to start today is the food supply and food shortages, right? So I'm from North Carolina, and in North Carolina, we get these things called hurricanes, right? So my entire life, I have basically remembered uh, Hurricanes Fran and Hurricanes Floyd from my childhood, where we went multiple weeks without power. Luckily, we did have running water, but that is also something that can be damaged in a hurricane as well, right? So, um, I've always been someone that prepares for hurricanes. And how do you prepare for hurricanes? You prepare for hurricanes by having an extra food supply, right? I'm also a person that lived in the country, right? Farm land around me, right? So we also we weren't that far away from town, but um, that being said, we always had canned food and stuff like that too. So um, if you're expecting food shortages, that kind of thing. So, you know, if we're in a political climate where they're deporting the people that get the food out of the ground and to your table, whatever the reason that there is a food shortage, um, preparation is key, right? So, what we do is every week we go to the grocery store, we purchase canned items that will last, at least a year, extra on top of what we normally get, right? So over time, you've built up enough that you could survive for a while uh, without having to being able to go to the grocery store with that, that kind of thing, right? So, but all this stems back to um, basically all of a sudden countries are interested in the food supply, right? Um, let's say they've had a war going on with Russia and Ukraine for a while. Well, Ukraine produces 40% of the world's grain, right? So a lot of the inflation that the world is seeing is because Ukraine cannot export the grain that it produces every year ever since the war started, right? Um, so of course you got the U.S. on one side and Russia on the other side, and Ukraine in the middle. Um, and basically, the war is really over that 40% of grain, right? If you really think about it, right? It's over food. Um, so the conspiracy theory out there is if you got these big government and you got the Chinese buying up farmland in the U.S., that kind of thing. You got the billionaires buying up farmland, um, and supposedly all of Bill Gates' farmland. There's a map out there that's called the flood map, or what the U.S. would look like if the ice caps melted and all that kind of stuff. Um, but basically, all his farmland coincides with that map, apparently. So the the idea being, if the countries are concerned with food, billionaires are buying up land to produce food. Um, that there could be some sort of famine or some sort of thing that the normal people don't know about that may be coming, right? So, but all you can do as a normal person is basically what I do for hurricanes, right? I buy extra food in cans that lasts a long time without needing refrigeration or anything like that. So let me know down below what you do to prepare for food shortages or natural disasters or stuff like that. And just let me know down below what you think about this situation going around all the world, right? So, all right, this episode is brought to you by London and the Googly Goo, which is my wife's children's book. Be sure to check out London and the Googly Goo, available on Amazon or in the link in the description. All right, so I see a lot of things out there like people wanting to move out to the countryside and make a homestead. Well, just recently, I came across a pretty, uh, I guess you call them TikTok famous person that had a homestead that decided to sell their homestead. And, obviously this being very surprising to me, because they literally got famous by having a homestead, right? Feeding chickens, feeding ducks, feeding goats, that kind of thing. But, so everybody has this dream about, not necessarily a dream, but like, it's like, oh, we should go live off the land, like that type of thing. And we should be able to be self sufficient. And well, what this lady really found out, actually having a homestead is that the reason we all moved and the reason we started depending on grocery stores and bigger farms and stuff like that is because having a homestead is a crap ton of work, right? You spend all your time taking care of the homestead. Now, that being said, is it the better way? Probably, right? Um, is it better to be out, an hour away from any major city with less electrical stuff around you, magnetic fields, uh, you know, without the chemtrails and all that kind of stuff? Absolutely is probably better, right? But is it easier? Absolutely not. It's the hard way. So now, what I see kind of happening in the future, which, hadn't really heard much about, right? But if you can get a robot like Oculus or something where it literally, charges up with the sun, solar power, you're out there, you're on a homestead, and the robot just does everything on the homestead, right? And then you don't have to spend your days, working so hard, so I kind of see something like that happening, right? But there's a reason that all our ancestors moved from the farm into the city, started working in factories. The factory work was easier than working a homestead, right? Also, there are years where you get famine, you don't get rain, like, that kind of stuff. But I do think it's interesting to think about, like, a lot of people think that, if we become this society where you have AI and robots, that all of a sudden we'll all be in the city, in this gaming world, or stacked through the roof, or but we may all go back to the homestead life, right? And let our robot take care of the homestead, right? Just something to think about. um, I would definitely say that if you've ever done any kind of farm work, that you understand how hard it really is. And it definitely doesn't pay very well, but um, it is something that I will say this about hard work, right? So when you do stuff that's hard work and you finish the project or whatever you're doing, there's a sense of pride that you have when you actually finish that work. Whereas when you do something that is physically easy, you don't have that sense of pride um, that you would have, right? So, you work construction, you build something, like, you're proud of that. You're proud of what you built, proud of the quality that it has or whatever. Whereas, you know, you do a spreadsheet and the spreadsheet's good, there's no real pride in a spreadsheet or whatever, right? So keep that in mind. Let me know if your dream is to go out to a homestead. If they came up with a robot that would do the work for you, would you purchase the robot and have the homestead? Let me know in the comments below what you would do. And we'll move on to the next thing, right? So, all right. Move on to life coaching today. Of course, we got a question for life coaching. And it's, what would your future self thank you for starting today? Right. So could go several different directions with this, and we may go all of the directions. I don't know. But the biggest thing that I thought of was like a brokerage account. Starting your brokerage account, funding the brokerage account, and being financially free. Right? That's the first thing I thought of. The second thing I thought of was opening a brokerage account for your children and funding it $100 a month. Imagine, you have big purchases and stuff like that when your children turn 16, like they need a car, all that kind of thing, prom dresses, tuxedos, whatever. They play sports, they need bats, gloves, that kind of thing. Well, what if you funded a brokerage account, and $100 a month, and that brokerage account went to $1 million and you were making $100,000 to take care of your kid every year, stuff like that. So that's what I kind of think like my future self would thank me for. And so that's what I've done, right? So every month I put $100 away for my kid, right? And, and hopefully that's $1 million for them by the time they're 18, right? And if it's not, even if it's $500,000, you're still talking about, being able to make $50,000 or more on that $500,000 and very much lightening the load of, what their life would be like or look like at 18. So let me know what you guys would start that your future self would thank you for, right? Another things I thought of could be like health stuff. So I started working out, maybe my future self would thank me for being healthier, stuff like that. So keep that in mind. Think about this question. This is definitely like a lifestyle question. What are you not doing that you should be doing that, basically has long-term benefits, right? So, health wise is eating healthy, working out, reading every day so you're not dumb, you know, mindset, skill set, habits, right? That's what we always talk about. So keep that in mind. And we'll move on to the last thing, which is the quote of the day. And it says, your story isn't over. It's just waiting for you to stop reading the painful chapters. Your story isn't over. It's just waiting for you to stop reading the painful chapters, right? So close the old book and write the one where you win, right? So this is basically saying like, okay, you got to let your past be the past. Your past doesn't have to define you, right? And so I see a lot of billionaires, talk about how they had to move to be successful, right? Because so many people remembered them from that past life where they weren't successful, where they weren't doing the right things, where they had bad habits, where they had a bad reputation. They had to move somewhere else where they could build a new reputation, right? Stuff like that, right? So if you're stuck in a place where people think of you as a bad person or something like that, or it's going to impede on you being successful, then you have to move from that place, right? Close that old book, right? That old book, this is not me anymore. This is not who I want to be. I'm going to be this way, right? I'm going to have the abundance mindset. I'm going to have a skill set that I can use and make a good life with. And I'm going to have habits that create that good life for me. Right. Um, so, and if you're someone that's stuck in the past, this is who I was, this is what I did, that kind of thing, you got to say, and now what? This is what I did, and now what? Right. So most people say, you know, most people say, let your problem be known, let your sin be known, repent from the sin, and move on. Right. That's Christianity's way of doing it. So do the same thing with your, uh, the painful chapters of your life. And we're going to design a life that you want to live. Right. We're going to do that with mindset, skill set, and habits. Right. So we do affirmations every day. If you don't have affirmations, pick mine up for free in the description below. Um, work on your skill set to get you the life that you want. And we're going to do the habits that create that life that you want. Right. So if you need help setting that up, I'm Nate and I'm a life coach. Be sure to sign up for life coaching if you're interested. Shop at InstaSale.com. Pick you up a cool inspirational t-shirt today. Buy my wife's book, London and the Goo Goo Goo, if you have nieces, nephews, or children of your own. Like this video, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with somebody that needs it. And we'll see you in the next one. Peace.